place that I come from, at that point of time, way back in the 77, 80s, there was not much of an expectation from the girl child, right? In terms of actually being there, in terms of doing a job or being financially independent. It was more about giving them a better life, giving them a good social life as such. See that, yes, over the years I have probably built in those leadership traits. I had worked without knowing probably on certain aspects, which has led me to that extent. I always had that desire in me to take up something different. So geographies, mobility, these were not an issue for me at all. While my advice I want to give to youngsters is that I think you overheard me speaking some time back that there are no shortcuts in life.
Yeah.
If you have to make a mark, if you have to be in the game, want to progress in life, you have to work hard, you have to take people along, and you will have to learn every day.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Equalifi Women in Finance podcast. I'm your host Namrata Baluni, and today we're back with episode 2 of the series. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Deepa Rath, MD and CEO of Access Trustee Services, one of the biggest debenture trustee companies in India. Thank you so much, Deepa, for being here. It's a pleasure and honor on having you here today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Namrata.
So before we deep dive into, more about talking about women in finance and all the heavier topics, I just wanted to, understand how your childhood was, what was it like growing up? Where did you grow up?
So, well, childhood was more like anyone else, but I have primarily born and brought up in Odisha. If I say so, I was actually born in one of the most backward districts of Odisha called Kalahandi district. So I don't have much of a understanding or remembrance around how it was, but I think it has been a variety of culture, different languages, different set of places that we have moved. My father being with SBI, so banking was in the blood in that sense. But he had moved to different districts of Odisha, and along with him, we have moved as children. I have an elder brother who was he was along with me. So the childhood has been primarily very, very, I would say, simple. Because it was those spaces where having the small playground, playing with your friends, and not worrying much about friends and studies for that matter.
Okay.
So it was an easy childhood, I would say. But grew up mostly in Bhubaneswar, where the studies was primarily done. Then completed my graduation in economics and psychology, and post which I did my MA in economics, and that has been my prior to job experience studies. But childhood, if you holistically ask, it has been a very simple and satisfying childhood, I would say.
That's lovely. And were you always academically inclined? Were you always a very, very bright student, or were you into extracurriculars? What was that like?
In fact, if I tell you, you would not believe, but I was never academically oriented. See, if you look at the place that I come from, at that point of time, way back in the 77, 80s, there was not much of an expectation from the girl child, right? In terms of actually being there, in terms of doing a job or being financially independent. It was more about giving them a better life, giving them a good social life as such. So at that point of time, it was all about, as I said, it was much easier for me to do studies at my own pace. But it was more about my own self-expectations. Right. Very early in my childhood, I realized that it's important to be financially independent. It's important to, set certain expectation from yourself. Right. To be the, to have a certain division. So that time it used to be first division, second division, etc. So not the 90% or 99% that the students procure now. But it has always been those expectations which has driven me. and to that extent, though not extremely academically oriented, I've tried my best to do well within my sphere. Right. So to an extent that when I was in my graduation, I think during that time I kind of topped my college, etc. But not in my early childhood, I would say.
Actually, it very much comes from within. I mean, there's an expectation of Indian parents, pressurizing to be really academically oriented. In fact, nowadays there's such a pressure of being very, excelling in your co-curriculars as well. But sometimes it has to come from within, otherwise it doesn't translate,
Absolutely.
And were you also always, very naturally drawn towards leadership roles?
So I'll give you a very interesting incidents around it. So very early, when I think I was in grade 4 or grade 5 or something, I'm not the most popular child in the class, maybe because I was not so outspoken, etc. But you're right, maybe something within me always wanted to be a leader. And I think that is a time where there used to be class monitor, if you remember, right? So you would have to self-nominate yourself to be a class monitor. So I said, okay, let me nominate myself and see how many people are actually voting for me. So funnily, there was 0 votes because you cannot vote for yourself, right? So anyways, I did not intend to vote for myself. But that was a time when actually my eyes opened. I felt that what are the leadership attributes? Why would somebody not vote for me at all? And what are those people who they are voting for? What is their natural attributes? Why are they actually voting for them? What are those leadership traits in them? So I kind of started looking at it very proactively. And when I went to my graduation, it was a women's college. It was Berhampur, another city of Odisha. And when I entered into the college, I said that I want to be the president of this students' union. I want to be somebody who can make certain, changes. Maybe it's a beautiful place, it's a beautiful this thing, but what can I make as a difference, right? So, and within a year, I was the president of the, students' union of the college. And then I could see that, yes, over the years, I have probably built in those leadership traits. I had worked without knowing probably on certain aspects, which has led me to that extent, know. So, and there has been no looking back since then, I would say.
That's lovely. Also, you mentioned that you studied economics and psychology in college. So was it, and your father was in, the banking space. So did that lead you to join banking, or was it something that just happened, that was written for you, I guess?
No, so as I said, at that point of time, there were not much expectations from the girl child from an academic perspective. But having said that, many of my, friends at that point of time, they are either engineers, they have done well in their life, but there was no expectation directly, I would say. Having said that, the studies or what will you do after your studies was something which was, so many avenues were not there at that point of time. Let's understand that, especially in Odisha, I think you would either become a probationary officer in a public sector bank, or you would become so civil services is another place where, people used to try a lot. So there were limited avenues for us. But yes, because my father was in SBI, I always had that, interest to get into banking. So I started appearing for those competitive exams, for probationary officer exams, etc. And I first joined in Bank of Madura as a management trainee, which later on got merged into ICICI Bank. And accordingly, that has been the beginning of my journey of banking career. But it was by virtue of my being an IT professional, because I had done an advanced diploma in software technology from an IIT. And accordingly, the management trainee that I got, though I went through the banking exam, the probationary officer exam, I went as a management trainee in their IT department. So it was more of tech at that point of time. And then I slowly migrated into banking because in ICICI, I went into Bhubaneswar, that was the local place for me at that point of time, and I joined into the retail banking stream. And from there, the banking, and various facets of banking has started for me.
I've spoken to so many people who are leaders today, and most of them, have done this because there was the boom of computers in the, early and late 90s.
Yes.
So a lot of people have done this particular specific course from NIIT.
In advance, yes.
Was it like a very big thing back in the day?
So again, at that point of time, while the engineering colleges were there were no private colleges, not many private colleges. The only ones which were operating at that point of time was NIT and Aptech, if you remember. That was another company at that point of time. Now, they used to provide scholarship. So I had got a 75% scholarship at that point of time. So I would say it was more about the innovativeness of their product offering. Again, another thing that we must learn is that at that point of time, what was important and was a gap was normal people who are getting into maybe a doctor, who are going to be doctors, or if they were getting into any other stream, can also have an additional degree of technology, which was prevalent at that point of time. So if I remember, in most of my school friends today, I think almost 60-70% of them are abroad and they are doing IT, they are doing tech, right? So that was the flavor at that point of time, I would also say. Yeah.
Right. So I believe you were in the banking industry for about 17 years before you, kind of switched. So what was it like? What made you, become the CEO of one of the biggest trustee service companies in India?
Great. No, so thank you. This is an interesting question. And I would say I've been very blessed to be in the financial services line and how it has worked for me. So as I said, I was there in ICICI in the retail side post my Bank of Madura days. The retail banking was a very, very interesting area at that point of time. It was very different than how you do digital today, right? So the touch and feel and the branch used to be a very, very solid mode through which banking used to happen. I did front office, I did lockers, I did forex, all that was required in the banking system. There was the grounding that I got.
Yeah.
Post which I moved to Kanpur, after my marriage, and there also I was in retail banking. Through an internal job promotion, I moved to Delhi as, corporate and institutional banking division, where the actual customer, the corporate banking started.
Okay.
So it was a corporate customer banking servicing unit, and that was the foundation of my corporate banking career. From where I moved to IDBI Bank, and there I did relationship management as a corporate banking person. Then I was in Delhi for almost 9 years. In IDBI, it was about handling PSUs, large corporates, right? So these were all very different experiences. How you deal with a normal large corporate versus how you deal with a PSU entity. And how do you behave when you are handling retail customer versus how do you handle the psychology of a corporate client, of a CXO or a treasury head or a finance head. These are very different aspects, right? Yeah. So I would say I've learned through that process, right? So when I moved to Bangalore, I headed Karnataka. That was year 2008 when I realized that the kind of corporate banking career that I wanted to have, it was important for me to get a degree as well.
Okay.
So that's where I went for my MBA finance degree. I took a 1-year sabbatical, in fact, and started my course, Executive MBA degree from IIM Ghaziabad. It was a fantastic program which kind of enhanced whatever I had learned through the process of banking. And that gave me the next set of career advancement into Axis Bank, where I joined in 2009 in the corporate banking branch. So where again I handled infra clients, road projects, power projects, EPCs, many different companies which was not in my portfolio earlier. getting into the granularities of credit, risk that could come up, managing the client, getting the fees from the client by doing a particular transaction, very different transactions which were very interesting, which were full of learnings, right? So these all were bigger and bigger learnings as it grew. So then I moved to Bangalore, that was to head Karnataka for large corporates. And within this journey, I think what had happened was there was a lot of recognition within the bank by seeing the kind of value add, and that got even more enhanced when the then MD CEO, Madam Shikha Sharma, picked me up on a Women in Leadership program, which was designed by the HR department at that point of time. And that gave me a lot of experience in terms of leading a geography. So if you have seen the geographies that I've handled, starting from East, that was, my hometown, to, North, that was in Delhi, to Bangalore, that was in South, and the different kind of facets of banking that I learned. I always had that desire in me to take up something different. So geographies, mobility, these were not an issue for me at all. While my husband also moved along with me. I mean, he was the first one to move and then I took up roles. But it always worked for us.
Yeah.
And within that, when I moved to Bombay, the first opportunity of getting into a subsidiary ecosystem came. So I was deputed to another entity called Access A-Trades, that's called the Invoice Mart, which was at that point of time, it was an RBI licensed business.
Right.
And it was the new license that we had received. And the task at hand was to scale it up from zero. So that was my first subsidiary stint. And within 1 or 2 years of its beginning, right from concept pitching to ensuring that the policy frameworks were getting aligned, to getting those customers, to doing those first 100 crores, 1,000 crores, getting those customers onboarded, it was a phenomenal experience. So I always wanted to, have a subsidiary thought process because, as you see, the way I have migrated, it was always in my thought process that I should take up something even better, bigger, and which is full of learning. So that's something which was there. Post which I moved to, I actually took a 2-year sabbatical because I had to take care of my child, and she was 5 years at that point of time. And we moved to Myanmar. I was abroad for 2 years along with my husband, who took up an assignment in Myanmar. And when my 2 years was getting over, I got this opportunity of coming into this subsidiary to head the subsidiary of Access Trustee Services Limited. Again, this is an extremely interesting business. So I can say in a one line, if I can explain to you, it's a composite business which I had learned over the years. So it has flavors of retail, corporate, capital markets, transaction banking, wealth management. So it is a very, very different business. I'm so glad that, this opportunity came my way. And I was so grateful that the management thought that I will be able to lead this business. I would say the dividends that I have got from leading this team has been phenomenal.
That's lovely and so interesting to hear your whole journey. It's quite inspiring, if I may add. I just wanted to ask, when you started, what was the representation like of women in finance? Because there wasn't much education and awareness about, careers in finance back in the day. So what was it like? Did you face any, challenges?
So interestingly, Namrata, if you look at that time frame, as I talked about Madam Shikha Sharma, many of these top banks were led by women. In fact, there were a lot of women in finance, and I say thankfully was one of the beginning, one of the private banks which had, a series of these women leaders that came from there, whether it is today's SEBI chairperson, Madam Madhvi Puri Burch, to Kalpana Morparia, to Zareen, who heads Standard Chartered right now. So many of these women were actually there for us to emulate. So frankly, women in finance has always been there. But I guess, as you rightly mentioned, whether so many examples, even after having so many examples, whether the opportunities were there for other women or not. So that is something which I guess was a problem statement at that point of time. Having said that, some of those resilient women who actually thought that they will be able to do it took those strides, and I think many of them are very, very well placed and doing a fantastic job. But yes, avenues at that point of time were less, I would say. But women leaders, inspirations were always there.
But don't you think they were outliers, and that needed to have a lot of like transformation for us to reach this? So they were the ones that kind of, and you and all of them were kind of, drivers for this whole process.
I wouldn't compare myself to somebody like Shikha ma'am and many others. But having said that, I guess you're right that the women's out here have been outliers. It's because of the journey that they take. If I can say that many of the more capable women, many of these who had potential. In fact, I would have an interesting story. When I was in ICICI in my corporate and institutional banking division, we were 4 women inside a small cabin. We were all CSMs, that is the customer service managers. And one of them, she was one of the most, I would say, energized person that I had ever seen. Very, very, I would say, enthusiastic. She knew her job. She was full of knowledge. But I guess and she would really support you. So whenever I used to have a problem, I'll go and speak to her, and she would always make me feel very comfortable. She had those, leadership qualities where she could make me, she would understand me. She would nurture me in that sense, right? So, but today, I guess she's taking care of her 2 twins, and probably not in active career. But having said that, we had lost some of these women in the entire chain of activities during the period, because maybe they have other things to do. There are much more and bigger demands in their life that takes over. So resilience, being there, or to be in it and to win it, those are certain things which probably lacked in some of these women's careers. But given a choice, I think out of every 100 women who have the potential, if we really give them the, the kind of enablers that they require, I think all 100 of them will make it big. They have that kind of resilience.
And I was also reading a stat from, I think it was CNBC, that, out of 2,000 listed companies in India, only 100 of them have women as MDs and CEOs. That's a very, very poor stat to have in, this day and age. So what are your thoughts about that? And also, is it just enough for women to have a seat at the table? I mean, I feel like there's much more that needs to still happen.
No, absolutely. So the statistics that you are putting up is actually very alarming. But having said that, I guess it's about how do you hire right. So the beginning is that any organization who is picking up their women force, they should not think they're hiring because of diversity.
Correct.
Because they have to get a data right? So today, in my organization, out of 100 people, 44 are women, 45 are women, right? So there is a large diversity. But believe in me, all of them are because of their capabilities. Because they belong there. It's not because I have to achieve a diversity number. Similarly, I feel that in the in any organization, what's most important is that you hire the right talent.
Yeah.
You hire that woman for her capabilities, for her attitude.
Yeah.
You train them and you nurture them in a manner where they can go through that period where they need maximum resilience.
Yeah.
It's the time when they are getting married, they are getting adjusted to their new setups, they are having their children, they are taking a break, they are coming back to the organization. If we can manage this period,
Yeah.
believe me, 90% of them will really make a mark.
Absolutely.
Many of them fall off because of this.
Yeah.
Many of these statistics that you talked about, many of these MD CEO materials actually fell off during that time.
Yeah.
That has been the challenge. So I would encourage that every organization need to hire right, maintain them, and ensure that they are resilient, and the organization is always playing an enabling role.
Yeah.
We can do a much bigger difference.
Right. These are very powerful suggestions because, as you rightly said, women need that nurturing environment. Absolutely. Wherein they know that, because obviously, if some women wanted to have a family and start a family, that's equally important for us to grow, even as a society, if you look at it, and even as an economy. Right. So that responsibility that women have, ever since they're growing up. Yeah. So I feel like organizations should really nurture that, and having that certain break, and everyone wants to be, will want to come back, and
absolutely
will be equally capable also of filling in these positions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So on like a personal note, you said that your husband is also a CEO of a very big BFSI company. So how is it like, at home with your children? How are the dinner table conversations like? Are they very intimidated that, oh God, both my parents are, overachievers?
No, I think there's nothing like that. Having said that, I guess I have a 10-year-old daughter. And she, as you rightly mentioned, most of the responsibility falls on me. But having said that, it is important that mother-daughter, connect. And at this juncture, when she is probably growing, she'll pick up her right habits, she will get into the next set of, career advancement, and she's also very inclined towards sports. So I'm very happy that we are able to give her the life that she deserves. But when two CEOs are very, very, I would say, different opinions. In fact, he because of his job, he's based out of Gurgaon. He doesn't live here in Bombay. He does make an attempt to come and be with us whenever it's possible for him. But the dinner table conversations are generally very, very normal. But sometimes, it is also in, I would say, conversation around equitability in the society. What can we do better? Some of these aspects that we see in our organization on a daily basis, certain ethical dilemmas, certain issues that are crippling the industry, certain things which will help our employees to do better. Some of these aspects get spoken about, and we have been very grateful that God has given us what He has. But at the same time, the idea is also about how to ensure that growth for everybody becomes possible. Like the persons who are working for us at our house, how do they grow? How do they become better as in the societal structure? Where can we help them, right? And what could be done at a larger level? Some discussions happen, not that we will be able to implement all of that, but because of the exposure that we get by being, like I am in many committees that the regulator has formed. and we get to go into different forums where we hear a lot of think tanks talking about many aspects. So these are things which really help us form our opinions, and we are fortunate enough to understand many of these aspects. But can we do certain things which will help our employees better, or the people that we deal with on a normal day-to-day basis? Can we make a difference to the society? So those conversations do happen, and I guess we are fortunate to have those conversations. Yeah.
So I just wanted to understand, from you, what have been the key learnings in your professional career or your personal life, and what have you kind of emulated and, incorporated in your life as well?
Now, thank you for asking this question. I think, so the biggest learning for me has been that you need to be a role model. Yeah. If you preach, you need to do it first. So you have to walk the walk and talk the talk, right? Yeah. So that's where I have seen maximum impact happening. Yeah. And it has really helped me over the years. I have driven things on my own. I have showcased the benefits of a particular way of operating. And that's where I feel, most of my abilities have got developed. So that has been my learning. In terms of emulation, I feel that, not only women, but I think many of these leaders in finance and elsewhere, I think a lot to learn. Today I have been reading some of the books, especially the Tata stories, as in how did Tata as a company have so many different businesses, and they have been able to make an impact in each and every one of them. They have stood by their values, and how the leaders and the professionals have taken it to where it is today. Yeah. Right. So these are some of the qualities that have really, I would say I've been enchanted with.
Yeah, and sometimes it feels like, we have to overcompensate, feel like we know everything. And that sometimes is not the way to go. You know what you know, yeah. And then you can always, kind of take help from everyone around you. And there's nothing, wrong or embarrassing about that.
No, you're absolutely right. So what happened was, when I took this particular role, and as an MD CEO, it was my first role. So this organization, which is almost more than 14, 15 years old, there has always been very senior men who have been leading this business. Yeah. It's a very regulated, very compliance-oriented business. So when I took over as MD CEO, I could see the perception of people, right? So meaning that, as you rightly mentioned, you don't need to know everything. You learn through the process. And there are certain things for which experts are there. Yeah. So you don't have to beat yourself up saying that I don't know this. You can understand, and as long as you have those basic leadership qualities of decision making, yeah. Taking the right cues and ensuring that you have the right solutions in place, you have the ownership and lead your team and defend your team, I guess you will get there. So you don't have to have that manufactured emotion of guilt all the time that you're losing out something at home and you are not knowing 100% of what you are doing. Yeah. You will get there. So you're very right that, keep these emotions aside. As long as you focus and you are there to make an impact, you will make it.
That's some very, very solid advice. Thank you for that. And before we move on to our quick fun segment, I would just like to ask you that, what are some of the non-negotiables when you hire talent, and what would be, your advice to people who want to make a career in finance?
Yeah. So, so Namrata, I think something which is not negotiable at all is the attitude. Yeah. I guess what differentiates people at workplace is their positive attitude versus those who have talent, who have, everything in them, but they cannot collaborate. Yeah. They cannot grow together. So hence I would say that talent definitely is one of the bedrocks on which decisions have to be taken. But if I were to hire, I will always hire on positive attitude. Yeah. And what advice I want to give to youngsters is that I think you overheard me speaking some time back that there are no shortcuts in life.
Yeah.
If you have to make a mark, if you have to be in the game, want to progress in life, you have to work hard. You have to take people along, and you will have to learn every day.
Yeah.
That is how you will grow in your careers. And everything, including work-life balance, everything that the current generation expects will come only when you give 100% at each level.
Yeah, that's really great to hear from you. And I would just like to ask you a few questions. So are you ready?
Okay, is it rapid fire or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, what is your favorite book, or do you have a favorite author?
My favorite book has been from my younger days. It's about The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. Lovely book about completely changing concepts of the world and, believing in them. But if you say author, I think for general light reading, I love Chetan Bhagat's books.
Yeah. Okay. If you weren't in finance, what career would you have chosen?
Well, I would have gone into administrative services. I would have been either in my state cadre or wherever, but I would have loved to get into administrative services.
Okay. And is there a singular word to describe your leadership style?
I would say nurturing.
Okay.
I believe that nurturing is the best style, because if you grow others, you will grow in that process.
Right. And do you have a personal hobby that you're passionate about?
Yeah, I love to read. I don't do that as much nowadays, but I don't get time. But I love reading books.
Okay. And what is your favorite way to unwind after a long working day, or what do you like to do on the weekends?
So it's my daughter's time most of the time. So when I go back, it's just so lovely to hear her day's job, whatever she has done, what sports she has played. I just love to unwind with her. On the weekends, I try to go out along with my daughter or my family members, but generally try to relax.
Okay. Last question. If you could have dinner with anyone, any famous personality, dead or alive, who would it be?
Well, that's a tricky one. But I guess someone I have really admired was the ex-president of India, Mr. Abdul Kalam Azad. I think his vision, his beliefs, the way he has been doing his job enthusiastically, both with the Space Research Center and as a president and as a teacher, what he was in his entire life. I think there would have been so much more to learn from him. Yeah. So I'd have just loved to pick up a conversation with him there.
Yeah, it would be great to be a fly on the wall in that conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Deepa, for being here today. It's been such an honor, hosting you today, and all your wisdom and all your insights have been so great. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Namrata, for having me here. It has been fantastic speaking to you. And I look forward to an opportunity to have a conversation with you again.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Women in Finance. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our channel so you never miss a story from these incredible leaders. We have many exciting guests lined up, so stay tuned, and until next time.